You're listening to the Adventure Party for the third week of June 2024. This week, the party returned to the gritty, complicated world of SLA Industries. The Adventure Party discussing tabletop and raid gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Savage Mick.
And I'm Owen.
It's a two for this week, folks. You just got the two more erratic hosts. That be fair?
The feisty hosts, we'll put it like that.
Oh,
The feisty hosts.
it's all color commentary here. That's not fair, actually. You've always been very good on the technicals, but we're not here to discuss the mechanics of the thing today, are we? Not entirely.
Not entirely. We're dipping back into SLA. Myself and Savage have a tremendous fondness for SLA Industries. And SLA Industries is, in contrast to its earlier days, regularly putting out content now. And I find it interesting to dip back in. Like, this is an RPG I have an incredible amount of time for. I will, if someone puts a new SLA book out, I will buy any old tat. And I'll be like, yeah, throw it on there. Let me have a read of that. And I will sit down and I will often read a SLA book out of enjoyment. I'm not necessarily tend to run anything, but I'm just like, let's go, let's crack this fella open, let's take a look. I was reading the latest two, the Kickstarter for the last two delivered a while ago, but I had a bit of free time, and I sat down and I read, they did the long-awaited Shakhtar book and the Wraithen book. They're not the Wraith Raiders anymore, the Wraithen. And Threat Analysis 1 Collateral.
They've been Eldari'd, haven't they?
They really, well, a little bit. Certainly.
Oh, where do we start?
Well, okay, so the Wraith Raiders classically looked like catgirls to a certain extent.
They'd have sort of a feral streak to them. Yeah, I mean, depending on which bit of the artwork you're looking at. Yeah, okay.
And you got to remember the vintage you were in here, right? We're talking late 80s, but really more towards the early 90s. Mick, have you ever seen an anime series called New Dominion Tank Police?
I'm familiar with the with this cultural artifact, appreciated by gentlemen of distinction.
Do you remember the Puma girls in it?
Oh yeah, I mean they're front and center, despite the fact that they're not actually really the main characters, are they?
Oh, they're desperately not the main characters.
No, they're kind of like, I think. Hold on, I've got a copy of the original here somewhere, in a kind of a small book format. And I read it and thought, wait a sec, they're all over the cover. They're all over anything I've ever seen mentioned about Dominion Tank Police. I was expecting an awful lot more catgirls.
But no, really not. And also, they're not technically catgirls. They're androids.
Hey, that's like, if we're going to get down to the actuallys on things that don't exist, we're going to be here long. Give me 2 seconds to grab all of the sleigh books. Oh no, wait, they're all in boxes. I'm about to move house. But I am, I've conjured up some images here. I was trying to remember. One of the problems that Slay's original artwork had, it's kind of a problem, and it's kind of the result of it all being one man's artistic efforts, is that after a while, a lot of the alien races kind of bleed, or even the non-human races. Alien isn't exactly the correct term for some of these things, like the Stormers. They kind of bleed together a little bit. And the original Wraith Raiders had a bit of that problem. So I can understand why you might need to make them a bit more distinctive. But let's go. We're okay. Obviously, yes. I think we've now established that I know what I need to know about the Wraithen. You were going to say something about.
Yeah. So the Wraith Raiders originally looked a little like catgirls. Now they weren't, but they looked a bit like it.
Feline, definitely.
Yeah. That I don't think he did all the art in the original Slay. I think some of it got subcontracted out, and a brief was sent. And maybe in the early 90s, as a younger man, Dave Alsop was a bit looser with his briefs.
And everything. Not necessarily a bad idea either. There was a lot of interpretation.
Absolutely. Give me something that looks like this. And he got an awful lot of lithe, cat-eared kind of young women back.
It was in the zeitgeist. And let's face it, at a certain level, it's never left.
Absolutely. And I think that percolated in a little bit. And I think he got told a lot of horror stories about And then this person was playing a Wraithen sniper who was a cat girl. And and so if you read the Wraithen book, there's a very strong line of these people are not cats. They are not cat girls. They are not this.
Not my artistic vision.
They're not sexually attracted to humans. There was basically there's a bit of a line of commentary runs through a bit like of a man with his teeth clenched and small cracks appearing in the teeth, explaining how something works.
It's okay, yeah. That opens up a really interesting kind of crack, I suppose,
Yeah.
crevice. I mean, yes, as written, SLA Industries. It's an awful horror game. It's really depressing. Except his art was so good, it looked really cool. It all looked really cool, and because it was sort of because it was riding this kind of zeitgeist of not just the anime Catgirl stuff, but also, I mean, and I had the kind of huge muscled kind of biomutant stuff that you also find kicking around in the Akira era. And then it's got brilliant sort of injection straight through the center of this kind of Northern English, Scottish punk goth kind of synthesis. You've got the Frothers, who are basically the best iteration of cyberpunk mental Highlanders you've ever come across. They're all stim-addled and absolute combat monsters, decked out in Bay City Runner tartan.
Yeah.
Or Bay City Rollers, yeah, that's ever so slightly showing my age and lack of. I wasn't around for it, but I've seen the photos. Like it's a uniquely British aesthetic and game.
Oh,
And it's all
100%.
there. And it's aesthetically incredibly compelling game, especially despite the fact that we went for years with very little fresh output.
To the point where it looked dead.
Oh yeah, and it kind of got revived a little bit, and there was a few like the Hunter Sheets books that came out quite a while back. I don't know where they sit in the current. Are they still supported?
Oh yeah, so what happened was the Hunter sheets are being reformatted and redone. They're printed in a new book that's going to be part of the new Kickstarter, but they actually printed a few copies of them for the UK Games Expo, which is also ongoing at the moment.
Okay, and they were certainly to a higher production quality, more color, but definitely the same Alsop style permeated the art. It's still a fair rawness to it. There's a kind of an edginess to it, which I kind of is one of the reasons we're talking about this. Let's sort of drop the lead now. Why are we talking about this?
Well, really, because I was looking at it and going, now, as an artist, Dave Alsop has been in the mines working. He's a working artist. You'll see his art on a lot of CCG content. And I would not, if you told me he was doing a bunch of concept art for computer games, which I would say is probably decently lucrative work, I would not be shocked.
Absolutely, and really suits his talents as well. He has a way of kind of capturing just insane moments that'll really inspire other people, especially like you could definitely look at his stuff and go, I can see how a 3D modeler might take that and run with it. But yeah, he's I don't think I'd ever ask him to do a comic book. Ever quite a different discipline. So he's back. There's more Slayer. There's more Slayer artwork than ever before in the new books. They're big, and the new run appears to have a thing for big faces on the cover.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's the industry. We could chat about that.
Yeah, and it's a disciplined book lineup. Like you've got the Species Guide, you've got the Slay Industry Second Edition core book, you've got the Collateral book, which is part of the threat analysis. I get the impression that'll be a series.
Yeah, it's a series of these are the bad guys you're taking on. And Collateral, the start is these are the bad guys that are created by Slay's own corruption, inaction, foolishness, And but if you look at the art, right? If you look at his art back in the day, I would describe his art as deliberately a bit rough edged. Liked his black and whites, liked his kind of slightly scruffy, very stylized appearance. Would you say that's fair?
Like you can look at them and there's an absolute kind of one and done aspect to them. This was whatever piece of paper this was drawn on in pencil was then inked on and then taken to, whatever their repo was, lithographic or whatever, and brought over to be published. And like these were drawn because this is the image he had in his head. This was not, oh, we need something for page 43 or roughly the combat section. We're going to need a half page there. Like this guy was just pumping it out. I'm looking at a bunch of them now online, with no consideration for anything other than get this out of my head. Is this cool? Now, some of it really. This is a sort of what would be an undisciplined approach. I don't know if he's got any art training in his background, but he's certainly. It looks to me like a kind of guy who reads a bunch of comic books, watches anime, listens to metal, punk, rock, whatever, and he's just all the ideas are just going onto the page. Composition isn't necessarily an issue. Technically, we're looking at largely black and white rendered in very hard ink. Sometimes there's photocomposites, sometimes there's some shading, hatching, things like that, but generally it's someone who's seen some of the best in the comic book and fantasy art, and is aping that. But I mean, aping is by no means a criticism here. It's to do with wanting to be in that space. Todd McFarlane was the same, or what was it? The guy who can't draw feet. Can't remember his name.
Oh, Pouches McPoucheson.
Damn, how could I? It'd be on the tip of my tongue. A very famous comic book artist. His name will come back to me. I'll roar it in a second. Couldn't draw feet. Didn't matter. He was, pouches everywhere. That's right.
Absolutely. Deadpool creator.
He broke into the comic book industry purely because he was so damn determined to draw that he just basically taught himself.
Rob Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld. Interesting backstory, that guy. Came from pretty much nothing and worked his ass off to support his family. Often joked about now, but that kid just wanted to be in comic books and just went for it. Dave Alsop, very similar story. No one was going to put this guy's stuff in print, so he basically went out and did it himself. And largely, I think, off the back of these crazy images in his head. Pretty easy. We both really love the guy's work.
Absolutely. There was a much admired original picture he did in Trinity Gamers that was framed up on the wall.
Yes, of Digger.
Yeah, it's actually one of the much admired pieces from the first kind of expansion book.
It's given a full page in one of the revised core rulebooks. Which I've had several copies of, and I've never managed to hang on to the one with is it Bisley's cover of Halloween Jack? Classic. Probably the most identifiably SLA Industries image out there. It's not by Dave Alsop. I think it's Bisley that did it.
But what we're kind of approaching as a point here is that he was. I think if you asked Dave Alsop to draw you a Blitzer, a pistol, the specific model of pistol, you would get a variety of things depending on how he was feeling in the art. Nowadays, he's incredibly disciplined to models, and nothing goes off model. Because I was looking at the stuff, and the guns, if you've got the Malassault cannon looks like the Malassault cannon exactly like it in every piece of artwork, to the point where it's like, bam, that's that again. Bam, that's that again. And I'm sure he uses some digital tools, but it's all been custom drawn. It's just like he knows what the model looks like now, and he draws to the model. And I think that's probably 20 years of experience working in the field and doing some video game concept stuff. I know he did a bunch of WoW CCG art and other bits and pieces, but like I'd say he's incredibly disciplined how he draws now. That stuff looks like the stuff looks like.
Yeah, the wild punk rock kind of stuff has bled out. He's certainly on a journey. A lot of artists, certainly a lot of working illustrators are. I don't like it. Sorry, it is.
I get it. I absolutely get why you wouldn't like it.
I mean, it's grand. It's good. It's in fact, it's a hell of a lot better than I'll ever do. But it is.
He's a very talented artist who used to be very talented in a kind of chaotic way. And now he's a very talented artist in an incredibly disciplined way.
Yeah, and you kind of wish for something in between.
If you look at the art, all of the art now looks like concept art from a video game.
Really evenly lit. It's all everything's clear, everything's on model as you said. And there's this consistency, but there's a consistency through any given piece. Like overall consistency, yes, but what I think annoys me more or kind of worries me more is that there's an evenness to everything in every picture. There's no, in fact, everything's pretty much completely exactly rendered the same, regardless whether it's the pistol that they're holding or the main face, the character, or the chair. You know, it's all kind of given exactly the same level of attention, which isn't necessarily kind of what you want in an image uh, for something like an RPG product, or in fact any image. One of the one of the dirty little secrets of great art is that you tend to you tend to focus your audience's attention on what you want them to pay attention to. Like go look at Caravaggio or Rembrandt or anyone like that. And if you stop looking at the thing that is the focus of the picture and look around the edges, like, man, there's an awful lot of broad brushstrokes here. One of the best examples of this has to be on also the most arduous artistic journeys has to be the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. The Sistine Chapel was created with the help of a huge team who did a lot of the grunt work around the edges. But the main pieces are painted almost entirely by Michelangelo himself. The first completed panel of Sistine Chapel is this big tableau of, I can't even remember what the subject was, uh, but it's a big tableau of lots of figures standing around as classically rendered as a big old pastoral background. And because it's 40 feet above your head, you can't make out anything in it. It's very well rendered and detailed, took a lot of time, absolutely useless for the job at hand. The last panel created was God creates the universe. It's Let There Be Light. And it's this big, mad, broad brushstrokes impressionistic piece long before there was anything called impressionism. And it was done, reputedly done by Michelangelo himself in one day. Now, this is a jobbing artist. He's been paid. He's been forced out of sculpting to do this for the Pope, whose name escapes me. And you get, first of all, it's a Brava piece. Works in the scale it's in. It's very clear what it is when you're looking up at it, and it's by an artist who's thoroughly sick of what he's doing at that point. He does not want to be there, and it's brilliant because it works so well. It draws your focus, your attention to just the thing that's important, and everything else is by and by. And he was probably out of there at 4 o'clock. So I'm just looking at an Alsop piece now from the recent. It's a bunch of guys in pig balaclavas, and every single one of them, they're all sitting around a table full of empty beer bottles. Every single one of them is rendered to pretty much exactly the same detail. I don't know who the main character is here. The beer bottles are all rendered exactly the same. The feet on the table of someone who's off shot is rendered with exactly the same detail as the face of the presumably the main character, guy in the middle. And it's very good at a certain level, but it's no longer exciting me. It's not doing anything interesting. I've been talking for absolutely ever about Michelangelo's work ethic and the dirty tricks. Yeah, overall, my impression is that someone has put. Now, and look, I don't want to make light of several very sensitive topics. This is a real person who reputedly, well, you might infer based on the material he's put out in the past, has had his ups and downs. Uh, but the most apt comparison I can think of is that early Dave Alsop is wild, and what we're seeing in terms of the artwork and what we're seeing, I don't know what the man looks like himself. What we're seeing is the kind of has finally dialed in the meds artwork of someone who has a job to do and is happy to do it and is good at what they're doing. But the wild excesses are no longer in evidence. The subject matter is still mental, of course. That's great. There's something's been lost with the as it's been evened out.
It's not a kind of punkish product anymore. It's somebody's who's been in the minds of concept art and probably has figured out that if I'm going to produce my art and I'm going to get other artists in to do my work, I want a lovely, clear, on-model image to show them this is what this looks like. This is what a Darrow looks like in a system. This is what a Malasol cannon looks like. And the artist then has a reference to work off. It's very responsible. You know, you're always going to get, okay, the gun is going to look like what the gun's meant to look like. You know, he's not, and I think that strain of wanting control over Slay is a big aspect to Dave's approach to doing the game, because he wants to be in control of it. Because remember, why did it come back? Second edition Slay happens because someone gets the license to do a war game based on Slay called Cannibal Sector 1, makes a hames of it, and Dave Alsop basically drives in the party bus, picks it back up, and finishes the Kickstarter. Like, it's crazy. That's what he did. And then started doing, then got really annoyed about some of the changes they made them all non-canon, and redid his own version of it.
Yeah.
Including going, I'm never reprinting this book again for Cannibal Sector 1, which is a pity, because it's a good book.
Yeah, it was a good book. And as ever with Slay, you're always kind of teasing out the next bit of the lore and trying to and waiting for the worlds to build out a bit further, which probably we're going to get a lot more of now, given all these new books that are hitting. It's a feast or famine, really, this game. I'm looking at some of the other artwork, like the Dream Entity Master and the Collateral book, which is it looks like monster manual artwork. It's great. It's a good kind of interesting-ish monster, but it's just standing there. It's not really doing anything. Beautifully rendered, good color choices. Yeah, black and white is sort of where we fell in love with Dave Allison's work. Has the move into color, perhaps the need to facilitate that extra dimension, has it forced a bit more conformity on him, and maybe if he's not as comfortable with it, what am I saying? Not as comfortable. He's clearly on top of his game. It just, I suppose, if you have black and white dreams and nightmares, are they robbed of some of their power in color? That's philosophy, Mick. Okay.
Absolutely. But you see, I think some of it is Dave Alsop cannot do this game on his own. And so what he's doing is he's going, this is what it looks like, draw this. And then he's doing things like saying, this is the plot, write this. And because Slay, he has a vision for it in his head, I'm not sure the contributors have as much kind of mad passion for it. Not to say they don't like Slay, not to say they aren't fans of Slay, not to say they aren't very familiar with Slay, but they're more producing product under his direction, and they're doing kind of, okay, he wants this. Because when you read some of the stuff, there's a very clinical explanation of how everything works. Like, if you read through the section on Dream Masters, in original Slay, this would get a lot more kind of allegorical at times and weird. No, why does this happen? Whereas this one is like, this is how Dream Masters work. This is exactly their life cycle. This is how they work. This is how they go through it. These are the stages. These things happen at the following stages. And it's like, compared to the kind of, I know people get very annoyed with the mystery box stuff and ooh, the meta plot, ooh, it's murky, haven't explained stuff. And there's very matter of fact explanations of everything that's going on. So it's completely transparent to a GM. So and that's good in one way, because for a GM, they know exactly what's working. They go, okay, this is how it works, so I can run it like this and so on. And I think it's a little less good as a read as a result, because everything's so matter of fact laid out.
Which doesn't exactly spark any creativity in the reader. Like, oh, well, what if it's this thing? And oh, maybe that's connected to that other thing I read about. Yeah, it's at the risk of cutting this short. I mean, Slay's kind of had a bit like the World of Progress itself and the efforts of Mr. Slayer. It's a universe that's now had a lot of the rough edges filed off.
Weirdly, without like crazy amount of commercial pressure to do it.
No,
it's not like the money men are in. Make it Dave.
Yeah, except he's an older person. He's older now. He's been in the game a long time. He's probably picked up a lot of this best work practice from
Yeah, I think
all
that's
the good
it.
work he's done elsewhere. And he deserves any success he can carve out of his own property. Like Slay, whatever era we're in with Slay, it stands apart. The only comparable thing is that's even vaguely recognizable is Shadowrun, I think. Like it's the only thing that holds that weird synthesis between fantasy and science fiction and urbanism in a way that few other things do. And it is his. I mean, it's now back at Nightfall Games. It's under his control. He's clearly a capable operator. He's working. He's doing great work as an artist. It's not his work that I'm most fond of, but it is capable, excellent work for the most part. And he's also directing others to do the same. That's a high mountain to climb for any creator, especially one who's started in an industry as chaotic as RPGs. And he's found legions of people who share the passion. Like SLA Industries is popular with people like you and me because it's such a compelling setting. And I mean, setting system wise, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I'm not sure I could point to any part of Slay's system that I thought was a great idea.
Look, let's not dig. I've thrown my elbows in the Slay system before. I'm very hard on D&D 5th Ed because they're the biggest company in the system with infinite money compared to everyone else, infinite development time. They deserve all the slack. I'm a lot softer on bad systems from other people who don't have the same development resources. It's like, yeah, it's not very good. Let's.
Doesn't matter. Like it barely touches my enthusiasm for the game, for the setting.
Now, what I see, the thing is, they're doing another Kickstarter this summer, and I am going to back that Kickstarter. I will buy every book in it.
Oh, what is it? What's this time? What are we getting? Well, we'll throw a link in the show notes for this.
The last one was the Collateral and the Shakhtar and Wraith books, which we've been waiting for years.
Yeah.
And the next one is going to be Threat Analysis Cults. I think it's starting early June. It's going to be up, and they're going to be about the Xi'an blood cults and stuff.
So basically, by the time this episode goes live, it should be surfacing. That's cool. And the threat analysis is it's an in-universe term, and it's also a great way of sort of framing these books in the sense that it gives us like it because what would we say about Slay Industries as a setting? It's the endless task of being an authoritarian sort of dictatorship, stamping down threats that are largely your own damn fault. And threat analysis is kind of a cool way of parsing that out. These are the homegrown threats. Here's cults. Here's the soft companies. Here's the off-world threats. Here's the things the weird aliens that we didn't manage to purge from the universe first time round. Yeah, I look forward to seeing more of these.
You know, honest to God, like I'm looking at some of this concept art he's got for some of the monsters and stuff like that, and they're they're very disturbing looking monsters, but they're all being drawn on a white background, so it's super clear what they look like. It's quite weird.
Because it's how you put together RPG monster artwork for the monster manual. Yeah, I think I'd like to see more artwork where you see these things in their natural setting. If I'm going to encounter a hormone-riddled super mutant pig in the sewers, I think I want to see it. I want the artwork to be it bearing down on me in a too narrow tunnel in the dark when it's all flashing teeth and hallucinogenic spittle, which isn't going to suit the wrap the text around it sort of monster manual style approach. It'll be seared in my brain. What age has he got to be now? What is early 50s, 60?
Oh, he's got to be of a slightly more venerable vintage, but not probably a lot more. I would say he was.
It does beg the question. Like he comes from a period where there's lots of good artists in that period working in RPGs and war games. Obviously, John Blanche is the one that really sticks out. And we've seen a lot of material online from John Blanche recently because he was befriended by a documentarian who happened to live down the road from him and was a big fan of Warhammer. So and he's put out several kind of art books in the last while. Voodoo Forest. I picked up a couple of them myself because I wanted to have John Blanche artwork that wasn't 40k. And it's instructive to see what he makes when he's not making commercial art. John Blanche he never started a company himself, never started a game system himself, to the best of my knowledge, and never had to do a lot of the things that Dave Alsop has clearly had to do. And I kind of wonder, well, what if he did? Would it have knocked the kind of raw Baroque madness out of his artwork in the same way that it appears to have for Dave Alsop, who is still technically very good, but man, I wonder, is there much contemporary black and white stuff from him? And I wonder, would it completely upend my argument? Yeah, it's having to wear a lot of hats might sometimes I don't know, just has an effect on the hat output.
What I would really like to see from them is an adventure or a campaign.
I was going to ask. You've read a lot more. How is the game sort of presented as something you can actually play or run? Because
Imagine you went back to the 90s, Mick, and someone just said, here's the rules, here's the setting, here's some kind of plot seeds, maybe some plot hooks. Get going, kids.
oh, like the news, or what was it, the BNPs?
Yeah, BPNs. It does not handhold anyone through their first couple of sessions at all. And that's okay, so I have a very strong opinion on RPG scenarios are a tool to teach people how the game is meant to be played and what the experiences and play loops are. And one of the things about Slay is kind of like
Famously few of.
there are very few adventures, but like, what's your play loop? You get up in the morning, you have your breakfast in your crappy apartment, you meet up with your squad, you go down to the BBN hall, you sit around waiting to be given a job because you're a spec op soldier on a 0 hours contract.
Yeah.
And then you go off and do the job, and the job goes south because they almost always do.
Costs you more in ammo than you're going to make on the damn thing.
Yeah.
But you might get your face in the camera somewhere, so maybe there's a sponsorship.
There's no guide for that. I was always kind of like, okay, how much of this, and then you wait 3 hours, do you expect to take on game time? Is that it? Do I just say, and then you wait 3 hours? Or do you do, and now I kind of drag it out of it? Do I make you role play going through the bureaucracy of sitting in a dole? Or do I or do I just go, look, this is what it is. Can you guys pretend to be frustrated and stuff? There we go. Thank you, lads.
No, we're not playing Paranoia, Owen. We're not doing that. Slay Industries could be unfavorably called Paranoia with no jokes. It has some of that to it. Yeah, your license levels as well, which sort of were meant to dictate the level of threat you take on as you progress through the game. But yes, it's very unclear how you're meant to kind of frame all of this madness. You're given lots of, not to mention, there's a few different career paths open to you in Slay Industries, like the whole, was it the contract directory that sort of,
Yeah, get into the contract circuit and such.
yeah, sort of go and be a sports star / serial killer. Okay, how's that fit into our working week? So a bit like some of the Black Industries 40k RPGs, I always thought there was sort of certain tiers at which different kinds of Slay operatives would exist. Because potentially go off world as well. Like Mortis or the cannibal sectors are the more sort of heavily detailed, but there was certainly some nods to the idea that you might be sent off world on occasion, which for various nefarious reasons, or end up tangling with White Earth or something at some point. Of course, all of this was very much in the kind of in the background. I mean, threat analysis, White Earths, is that a book that will, like the botanist pin, just pin the butterfly to the board and rob it of all of its majesty?
I think these books are a good companion for a GM to read and kind of understand what's going on. And then you need a more evocative adventure. Like, it's like someone explained how the Chaos Gods actually work in 40k. You'd be very well armed to run stuff. But Realms of Chaos does a better job getting you excited for them. Because it muddies what they're actually about and go, oh, this is about this. And when you read it and you actually immerse yourself in the lore and you're there a long time, you kind of go, hang on, this is all bullshit. This isn't actually what they want. This is what they tell people they want. This is what the PR firm tells people they want. Like, it's not like, Korn doesn't actually believe in martial honor at all. Like, he says this in one section of the book, but then you look at what his guiding principle is, and Korn cares not from where the blood flows, he cares just that it flows. And that's a very important wee aspect of it. Whereas this one does that this is actually what's going on. Very matter-of-factly explains it. And I think they do well to have an adventure that kind of dips into this and doesn't explain everything as bare bones. Like, gives you kind of the more in-universe, this is what it feels like, this is what it looks like, this is what you experience. And the GM can go and read the other stuff and go, okay, that's what's behind it. And now I run the game, because I think you need a campaign to explain what playing the game feels like, and one that should take you all the way along a series of PPNs that get worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, like, you can read Slay, old Slay, and you would be left wondering, are the ops you play just rats running in a maze for someone's amusement? Or are they actually meant to be stopping problems? Like, are ops actually a tool for doing stuff? Or are they literally pawns just being played with because it amuses somebody?
Considering it was written during Thatcherism, I think the answer is... I think it's pretty clear what the answer is.
And you wouldn't be sure if you read it. You'd be like, is Slay meant to solve everything, or is Slay meant to make everything worse? And now there's a bit more of a, we're a corrupt thing that has created a massive amount of problems for ourselves, and it's all coming back on our heads.
I think it's the onion of misery. It's like every layer of the onion is going to make you cry. And if you're on the lowest layer, you kind of look up at the guys above and go, "Oh, wish I was one of those guys. Could be on the contract circuit." You get there and discover it's just hell on earth to be on the contract circuit.
You're in the low bar. It's not good.
And if you get into the upper echelons of Slay itself, you're suddenly worrying about the infernal politics between the various divisions like Karma, and if you finally pierce the veil and discover that it's just as bad to be one of sort of Slayer's right hand hench people, that there are worries beyond the grubby and the material that shake the very foundation of reality, and now they're your problem. And to elicit some sympathy from Mr. Slayer himself, it's all his fault, and he knows it, and it's not clear that anything can be fixed from here. So I mean, I think there's kind of reflections in it of the whole sort of 40k Horus heresy. The closer and closer you get to the Emperor, the more you realize this isn't looking good for anybody, and there might not be a good way out. So would you say that this kind of covers off approach that they're taking the new books is a reaction to kind of how Slay has been perceived?
I think it's a reaction to the truth, and they're being kind of like they're being very, very veiled and deceptive about what was actually going on. And when people saw that, they got very annoyed. And I think we're just going to tell you, this is how it works, guys. They're laying it out there. We're not prevaricating. We're not hinting. We're not trying to manipulate, which is weird. Because they still do the fictions at the start and end of the book, which I still really enjoy, which are all set in the real world. Well, no, in our world rather than the real world, not a real world. Because you can't, the second you tell everyone, oh, it's all a dream, it's not all a dream. It gets created by people thinking about it, but it's a real universe, which is a weird little narrative kludge they have.
Yeah, so I mean, just to sidebar on the truth, capital T, in Slay was this sort of pre-internet culture, one of the last really great pre-internet culture RPG mysteries. This hinting at in the sidelines and on that was kind of early internet, sort of BBS board internet, where it floated around for a long time that not everything was as it seemed in Slay, even for the person who's reading the book. Uh, it's not clear that Alsop himself ever had a very clear idea, but then this document called "The Truth," which has been verified.
Yeah, it was a writer's document. It was basically this is what's actually going on.
It was the writer's Bible to say, okay, look, when you're writing this stuff, which is weird that he'd write a writer's Bible for a game that almost no one was writing for. Kind of more or less, maybe just pin it on the page for himself.
I think there's a strain of diligence and control in Dave Alsop where he wants people to know, okay, don't cross these lines. These are the lines you color inside. These are the lines you don't cross. And he wants people to know that, and I think that's very fair to give someone a transparent brief like that. To go, this is what's going.
Absolutely, and because there is some boundary, it doesn't mean you can just woo it forever. So there is an ultimate truth to be uncovered, which I really liked about early Slay. And I mean it had the benefit of sort of creating further interest.
And we used to have discussions about what we thought was actually going on. Like, was it people from the real world? What was going on? What was going on exactly? Where people come from? Who's real? Who's fake? You know?
Now you get to season 5 of this particular show, and it does kind of unravel a bit.
Absolutely.
But that I think as I've grown older, I've come to accept that it's very hard to keep the card trick going indefinitely. You have to sort of show all the faces in the end, and it's fine. That's part and parcel of it. It is more satisfying to have something concrete than not. Ultimately, so okay, but it's still lacking good structure. It needs a down and out in Mort on 40 credits a week kind of player's guide.
I think it needs an adventure that takes you through a series of escalating BPNs dealing with a problem. Hand holding you through, not just going, oh, you're in this one will, like they do some kind of hunter sheets and short form sketched out adventures. And I'm like, you need more hand holding with this system, particularly with the idiosyncrasies of some of Slay's mechanics and some of Slay's world building. Where someone goes, okay, why don't we just use our smell shot cannon to basically blow the building to smithereens and then haul out anybody who's still twitching? And like, you're not allowed to do that for a number of reasons, you know? It's prohibitively expensive in terms of bullets. Number two, the city is built in crazy layers. You start destroying the fundament, you know?
Yeah, the fire department going to show up and squish you if you're lucky.
It needs a hand to be gently taken and the GM walked through all the steps of the campaign, including just how much of behind the curtain stuff and what's really going on the player's characters should experience. Like, can you imagine how much difference there is for a player who has read all these books versus a player who has read none of these books?
Yeah, I mean, in the latter, it'd feel a lot like Cyberpunk with some more funny masked people running around, a bit more savage, and a lot of the stuff that would a lot of the illusions that would cause players in the nose hair to stand on end would just kind of float by. You'd be like, fine, whatever. And yeah, there's a particular strain of bureaucracy that runs through this that is familiar to anyone who's ever been on the wrong end of social services or office politics or anything else of that ilk. It's funny. I've still, as an exercise in class politics, I still find SLA Industries fascinating.
Absolutely. But here's my issue. Here's my biggest issue with it, right? I love this game. I have never considered running it. I look at it and I go, "Oh God, how would I
don't
do
know where
that?
you'd start.
It's like someone has built an amazing looking sandwich, and it's got a thick layer of crusty sourdough. It's got a layer of chicken, a layer of bacon, a layer of, fine, rich Caesar sauce, thick chunks of lettuce, a second sheet of bread, then another layer of egg mayonnaise, and then a layer. And you're looking, my God, this looks amazing. But then you're going, how do I open my jaw wide enough to take a bite?
There's also a layer of sandpaper there. Why is that?
Absolutely. But I'm not sure how. I do not know how to bite my way into this sandwich. And that's why I'd have an adventure, because I think it'd onboard me in a way that most of the things are. I have my one sentence summary of Slay.
There's the keys of.
The Eldred, yeah, but that's not. You read it?
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's very short. I've 2 copies of it. I think. I don't know. I've 2 copies of a lot of Slay books for some reason.
Well, you needed to, because they all used to fall apart. These new ones, right? Binding's amazing, all hardcover. The layout is immaculate. It is so disciplined. Have you looked at it?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
It's so.
Honestly, I mean, okay, and writing wise, it's kind of retains the Slay magic
It's very. There's little bits of the madness still pop out.
in the sort of in universe stuff. Yeah,
There's so many. There's other writers working on it now, and they're clearly they care, right? I think absolutely they care, but they don't quite have the Dave Alsop madness that kind of runs through it. The little spark. I mean, I think these guys work hard. They produce. It looks lovely. It looks all the way up for, despite being a tiny little company that are kind of running off Kickstarters. This is, if you looked at this looks like a major league book.
yeah.
It absolutely does.
100%.
And the layout's immaculate and everything else like that. But I find it difficult to know where to bite. And I'd love a little bit more help deciding where to bite.
So it reminds me. Okay, so I think there's a modern comparison. I mean, Slay is contemporary. Obviously, it's getting new edition, new books. But if I could give it to somebody else, I'd give it to Massive Press, who did Lancer. They've done such an impressive job of making a good system. It's not amazing, but it's quite good, and it is a system that really only can be used for mech RPGs. It's definitely it supports its themes and its setting. Their lore has been pretty. I mean, I kind of dumped on it from the core book, but since then it has gotten very good. There's lots of intricacies, and they also get sort of the grit of what makes Slay's world so compelling. It isn't 4-color heroics. It is, and it isn't just grotesque weirdness either. It's something in between that also involves filling out a form to some degree. I wonder. I must go and ask them if they've read Slay or are influenced by it in any way. And their artwork has been. It's not everyone's taste, but I find their artwork, especially the mech stuff, is great, and that they've retained some of the madness, despite the fact that they're now working with bigger art teams. Some of the mechs are just completely bonkers in a good way.
Because I think there is actually still some, like the core book had some fabulous writing in it. The whole time, basically the planet getting converted into a resource world for making the fast food burgers.
Burgers, yeah.
And I was like, that should be
horrible.
A campaign, man. That should be a campaign, going there and fighting the insurgents. The biggest problem with Slay is you usually end up playing the super baddies.
Got a lot of skulls on our uniforms.
My one sentence summary of Slay, which we can wrap up on, because we talked a good chance here, is right. This is my one sentence summary to sell someone out. It's Shadowrun, but you're a newbie spec up soldier on a 0-hour contract working for an evil megacorp in Glasgow. It's raining, it's Eldritch, and the fucking Tories are in charge.
Timeless, really. Could have been written 20 years ago.
Absolutely. I care about this game. If I didn't care about it, I wouldn't talk for an hour about a game that I'm not sure how to play.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's a hell of a read. It's still inspiring. Yeah, I think I don't know. And at the same time, it's too much work to do a conversion to a sane system.
Tell you what we'll do is we'll come back on this one maybe once Collateral or once Cult comes out, we'll take another look, see if there's something more there, see if we can put something together, maybe try and play some of it. God knows, you know. That'd be a good one for the Venturing Party Let's Play, where we just sit down and try and figure out how the hell do we play this game, how do we manage it.
I'm not. You know what? I love announcing new series on this podcast, and then I go, and now I've got to edit them. But yes, as a Let's Plays, we don't edit. That's the beauty of them. We're not Critical Role.
No, God no, God no.
So that's been our retrospective, look forward, check in, and Kickstarter plug for one of our favorite RPG settings, if not games. Yeah, Dave Alsop's, and I think we can say Dave Alsop's SLA Industries, an absolutely amazing piece of work. And I don't see Henry Cavill trying to make this into a TV show anytime soon. It just lives as an RPG thing first, which is wonderful.
He's trying to sell out, but nobody's buying.
Oh, you got to be a market maker. He's just enough crazy. All right, take us out.
And with that, if any of the issues raised in this podcast have affected you, please contact us on our social media, on our YouTube channel, on our Spotify, on our Discord. Best of all, come have a chat with us. We'll shoot the crap about some stuff. All right, but for now, this party's over.
Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there, or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. We can also be contacted directly by email at party@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike of version 3 license.